Hey Nick,
Hey, all
your
right.
day?
So, yeah, how you doing?
Good.
So listen, I have a question for you, right? So let's just paint this scenario out. So if a buyer calls you, if somebody calls you and they're ready to go purchase another home, right? They want to buy a home, but they currently own a home. And they're ready to list their home because they want to sell it. In that instance, do they just tell you, "Hey, I want to list my home," you list their home, and then they go search for a new home? Or should they like speak with somebody else? Should they talk with a lender before they even start that process? Like before they list their home, do you think it's a good idea to speak with a lender beforehand?
100% Nick. Before the house even goes live on the market for other buyers to look at,
Hmm.
the owner should absolutely speak to a lender, especially if they're thinking about buying, because they need to know where their DTI is at, where their credit's at. And then, as us as realtors, we will meet with them and give them an estimated net seller's proceed sheet. So
Hmm.
they'll get an estimate of what they will get back. And so it's very important that they talk to a lender about buying a house and getting qualified prior to listing their home, because if they can't buy, they might not want to move at that time.
Sure, sure. And I'm sure that there are probably certain situations where this wouldn't pertain to, right? So like if they were um, moving out of state and was going to have like corporate housing or moving in with family, or if they were going to go rent for a little bit, right? At that point, you could just sit down with them and say, "Hey, yeah, let's have a listing appointment," and then we're good. Like, would they have to speak with the lender? Like, if it was like if they were looking to go rent, like, would they still need to speak with the lender beforehand?
Not necessarily. So, as an agent, I kind of dig a little deeper on that of like, why are they looking to lease? Because maybe they
Hmm.
already kind of they know their situation, right? They know the chain of events that have happened to them, which is causing them to have to sell and move and to go lease. But
Right.
sometimes a lot of people think that they have to lease when in reality they can buy, because by time you pay, you know, $2,500, if your rent's $2,500, you're paying first month's deposit and a security deposit, plus if you have any pets. So by the time you look at it, you could be $5,000 or $6,000, and that
Sure.
could, instead of first month's rent and a security deposit, that rent and security deposit can be your down payment to a house. So, sure,
100%.
I think they
Yeah,
still
yeah.
need to, just depending on their situation.
I can agree with that. And even if we need to do some kind of planning or anything, for the next year or two, like we can do that too. So it's always still good to make sure you surround yourself with with the professionals, with people who do this for a living so you can have the right people on your team. I know we've talked about this before, the power of collaboration, who we need to be talking to, speaking with a realtor about what you plan on doing, speaking with a lender to make sure that you can come up with the money down payment, that it makes sense for you, right? That it makes sense for you to sell this home and go purchase another home. Because one of the other things that I think could happen is that there could be a misconception that, hey, I'm ready to move up, be a move up buyer. But you could have had circumstances that have changed over the past few years with COVID and all that other stuff that was going on, that you may not be able to improve your position as much as you thought you could. So
Mhm.
it definitely always makes sense to, talk with your realtor, speak with a lender to make sure that what you're hoping that you can do can actually happen, right? I think that's very, very important.
Yeah,
And
and
go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you, Nick, like, just, talking about COVID, we've
Mhm.
seen it. A lot of people's lives got turned upside down and changed, right? So if they went from one industry to another, they might not be in a position to buy, because you have to have that 2 years of
Mhm.
being in that same field.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you what, this brings me on to my next question. So COVID happened, people bought homes at crazy low interest rates. So what's happening right now is we have that lock-in effect going on. Nobody wants to move, nobody wants to go buy because they don't want to get rid of that 2%, 3% interest rate. So scenario here is that, say I wanted to keep my home and just go buy another home. Like, what would that look like? Like, am I able to do that? Who do I need to talk to in that instance as well? Like, if I just want to go buy another home, maybe rent out this other one that I currently own.
Sure. No, great question. So once again, I would still have them reach out to the
Yeah.
lender to see if they even qualify for that, right? Can they
Hmm.
qualify to carry two mortgages?
Hmm.
And if they wanted to rent out the first one, the lender will take in consideration of that rent, right, as income if there is leftovers, right, after all the taxes and insurance on the rental amount. But at the end of the day, you still have to talk to the lender to see if you even qualify to carry both mortgages. Because if you can't qualify to carry both mortgages, then on the buy side, we're looking at a contingency contract on your new purchase, which
Yeah.
means that you have to have your home sold prior to being able to close on the
Mm.
new home.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the most important things is that if you have somebody who is wanting to hold on to their current home that they have a low interest rate on, it sounds great, want to be a landlord, want to do all that. But if you cannot afford to carry both mortgages like you're talking about, then we will have to rent it out. And the thing about that is that we can't just go off of what I can rent it out for. We have to actually have somebody in place. So as a lender, what I have to make sure is that we have a lease agreement that's in place. We have to
Yep.
get that in place and we have to have a security deposit that's already going into your bank account before I can start counting that rent for that first home that you have. The great part about that is that that's going to go towards your mortgage. And so that will help you get qualified for the next home that you're going to go buy. But depending on what type of loan it is, FHA and conventional a little bit different. Depends on how much of that rent that I can actually use. So typically we just use 75% of whatever you're going to rent it out for as the income, right? So that kind of goes hand, kind of depends as well. Again, this is why, it's just important that let's go ahead and figure out what your situation is, see if we can make this work so you can go purchase another home. Like if it's going to be a second home, or if you're going to buy another home but rent this one out, we have to make sure that all those things can work financially for you.
Right.
And
And the
go,
seller,
yeah.
no, I was just gonna say, and the seller also needs to know that not only can you qualify,
Hmm.
even if they qualify to carry both mortgages, are they comfortable with carrying both mortgages? Because if they rent it out and that renter doesn't pay rent that month, they have to be able to cover that mortgage payment so it doesn't ding their credit. So they need to
Yeah.
understand what they're getting themselves into and be comfortable paying
Yep.
to
A-
they need to.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't want to drown in debt here, right? We don't want to get ourselves in a predicament where we cannot afford, both things. And that is one thing that a lot of people don't understand. You may get approved to go purchase that home with a $4,000 monthly payment
Yeah.
with everything that we look at, but are you comfortable paying that on a monthly basis? Right. And then, if you are selling your home, so let's switch gears a little bit. If you're going to sell your home, like we want to make sure that we can make enough profit on your home to be able to cover probably the majority of the down payment for the next home, right? Because that's what we all try to use when we're trying to move up, sell a home to go purchase another one. We're wanting to use whatever that equity is that we have in that home to put towards the new home to the new house. So you had mentioned a little bit earlier about a seller net sheet. Can you explain like what exactly that is and how that works with somebody who's wanting to sell their home?
Yes. So what we do is that we will bring a seller's net sheet to the listing appointment, which we will kind of, hypothetically, if the house sold for X amount of dollars, what we also calculate is what the commissions are. We can prorate your taxes and prorate your HOA based on an estimated close date that you might receive in an offer. And then we always say, take that minus your payoff
Hmm.
and on your mortgage statement. And then whatever that amount is about it's estimated about what you're going to get back from closing. But again, those things can always change depending on close date, your prorated taxes and HOA will change.
Mhm.
And then are you giving sellers contributions towards repairs? I mean, so there's a lot of factors in there. So as a listing agent, I always make sure that when we receive an offer on a home, when we do go active, any offer that we receive, I do a seller's net sheet so they know exactly what the estimate is going to be that they will get back at closing. So they'll have an idea, especially if they are buying, maybe they're not getting as much as they thought they were going to need. So they
Sure.
might need to pull, $5,000 from their 401k. So
Mhm.
I always make sure that we're all, we stay on top of that as far as the seller's net sheets. Now, it's funny because, you know, when it comes to seller's net sheets, we take into consideration, do you have any mechanical liens? Do you still have a contractor lien that just updated your kitchen or bathroom for you? Those type of things, because those come
Mhm.
off the top.
Yeah, and the seller net sheets are really important for all that. And it's also important that the lender sees that as well, because if we are contingent, so what contingent means is that, we have to wait for you to sell your current home before you can buy your new one because we're waiting on these funds to
Mhm.
help with your down payment and closing costs and any other costs that could be associated with purchasing your new home. That's why a net seller sheet can be so important, that the lender sees that from the real estate agent, because when we see the homes that you're going to go look at, it helps us with our pre-approval process to make sure that you will have the correct amount of funds to close on your new home. So like, yeah, it's very important that all that stuff's laid out there. If there's liens or anything like that, a lot of people don't know that. You have a lien on your home like that, that could be a rough deal to try to get that
Yes.
transaction done, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There could be some surprise liens too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
just
nobody wants that. Yeah.
no, no.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, and and like I said, contingencies, when we talk about that, they can have a domino effect if we don't do it right.
Mhm.
Because we have to make sure everything has to work, because you're trying to purchase a home, you could be contingent to purchasing that home for your home selling. Okay. Well, your home selling, so now you have a buyer trying to buy your home that you're selling, and the home that you're buying, these people that are selling you the home, they could be contingent to buying their next home because you're buying them. I know this is super
Yes, it's
confusing, but I got four pods right here, right?
yes.
It takes one of them, one of them's like that straw that's going to break the camel's back. So there's a lot of moving parts that are going in here. And so like a lien, right? When you're talking about a lien, you were telling me a story a little bit earlier about like a lien, like just kind of messed up. It was a chain reaction. It had this
Mhm,
domino effect. So
mhm.
like, that's very important. Like when you're going through some of these listing appointments and when we're talking to people, it's like we need to figure out whether or not you are contingent to purchase your next home or not. And it's really important to know that stuff. And that's why it's important that the real estate agent knows that. And it's important that you get paired up with a lender that can really look at all those numbers and guide you in the proper direction, and have that open communication with the real estate agent saying that, hey, they're contingent. This is the only way that they can make this deal work is if their home sells for this, right? Because
Right.
I may look at that net seller sheet that you give me, and I'm like, hey, look, the price points that we're looking at, the only way that we can make this deal work for these buyers is that we need X amount of dollars
Mhm.
made off this deal. Have you ever had that kind of situation where like you're working, right? Like you have to work with the lender to make sure everything can work out right to make the deals work?
Yeah, I've even had where the sellers go get qualified. They qualify for their new home. Everything's great, but they spent a little bit more on their credit cards over the past
Hmm.
few years than they normally would have, and so they have to pay credit cards off. So we've
Yep.
had, lenders say, "Hey, they need to pay off this credit card at the closing table in order to qualify to lower their DTI." So we have to
Right.
take into account that not only are you getting X amount of money back after, all the real estate,
Hmm.
you now have to pay off, which could be 10 or $15,000 extra in order
Sure.
for you to qualify. So it's very important to know that up front prior to selling your home, and then
Hmm.
you're not buying the house that you thought you were going to buy. So know
Yep.
what you're getting yourself into prior to just diving in, assuming that, oh, I own a house. I'm good. I know my credit's good. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's great. And you also need to know that it's just not credit that goes into getting
Hmm.
approved for a house.
Yep. All right. So here we go. You ready?
I'm
I'm a
ready.
homeowner. I own a home. I'm ready to go buy another house. Well, I own a home, so I should be able to buy the next house, right? Like I'm good because I'm a homeowner. Is that right?
No,
Nope. Oh,
no, that's not right.
nope, can't do it. So just because I own a home does not mean that I can go buy another a house, right?
Correct. You need to
Okay.
make sure that you contact your local real estate agent and make sure that that real estate agent has your best interest and needs
Hmm.
at heart, and they contact you to the lender that they have, so they can get you pre-approved prior to putting that house on the market.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here we go. Like if you're planning on doing anything, if you're thinking about, hey, I'm thinking about selling my home here in the next 6 months or, in a year, best piece of advice I can give you is to reach out to somebody in the real estate industry, whether that be, Ashley as a real estate agent or myself as a loan officer, a lender, reaching out to somebody so we can get this conversation started to make sure that we can have you in the best possible position when you are ready to make this move because you never know. You can say, yeah, I'm just going to sell my home and you haven't checked your credit in a while, and then your credit's your hold up when you're trying to sell your home to go buy another one. Or, you you may not make as much money as you thought you would have on your home, and that's where Ashley can really come in with this net seller sheet. So it's really important that when we start thinking about that, having those conversations, that we're reaching out to the proper people. And here's this other thing, everybody who's watching this, I will tell you that if you do know anybody who is thinking about doing that, reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help anybody who is in this situation.
Absolutely. All right, well, I appreciate your time, Nick, and we'll see you soon.
Heck yeah. All right. See ya.
All right.